Well, Dale, I mean, as one of the authors, co-authors of Prop 215, I mean, you've seen this, legislation proposed, debated, developed, written, only to die at the end of a legislative session. And here, finally, looks like lawmakers have passed pretty significant legislation. Can you just say what are your thoughts that that legislation has been passed?
It was really gratifying, I think, that finally this year, after lots and lots of work on the part of the sponsors, I got to say, they were able to come up with a bill that was acceptable to all parties involved, including not only patient advocates like ourselves, but also law enforcement and city and county governments and the industry and organized labor and so on and so forth. And I really have to congratulate the staff involved in this, in all the work they did. And there's a lot of detail, a lot of thought went into it.
At the 11th hour, I remember watching the bill pretty much every day, and then all of a sudden on September 1st or thereabouts, the text just disappeared. There's a placeholder.
Yeah, well, that was just standard end of the year legislative maneuvering, because they had three different bills floating around, and they had to reconcile them into one thing, and that took a lot of work. And so while they were doing it, they just put up spot bills that weren't very explanatory while they, worked long hours with the governor's staff as well to try to sort things out and finally come up with the text. The final stuff, and actually they ended up with three bills anyhow, but they distributed the stuff over the three different bills so that each author could claim some credit, but they all fit together in sort of one piece.
Well, AB 266, it really, I'm thinking about some of the farmers I know now and other processors in the medical industry as it has existed under Prop 215. And man, this means a really big change, it appears.
It's huge, but it was sort of inevitable. It's what every other legal state has been doing, starting with Colorado. And it's really pretty much, it's in line with what other states have done, with one major exception, namely that it's trying to accommodate a pre-existing industry that has been here for a very long time, unlike in other states like Colorado, which really didn't have a domestic industry, so they just sort of started off de novo with, new contractors who came in and started building these grow houses. But here we have all of these people who've been growing under Prop 215 now for 20 years, and we're trying to get them into a system, and sort of this system has to sort of be designed around the existing industry to some degree. So that required a new level of sophistication.
Yeah, with this level of organization now with medical, though, looking ahead, boy, this really in some ways makes a case for a larger legalization initiative.
Well, it's only because they're so scared of the fact that there will be a legalization initiative on the ballot in 2016 that they did this. I mean, the discussions were full of references to the fact that, oh my God, legalization is going to be coming. We better get ready for it now.
And so, is this change? I know you're involved with, the Reform CA movement.
Yep, I am.
Does it sort of alter? I mean, you guys, as I understand,
we were expecting something along these lines, but of course we've waited here to see exactly what they came up with. We certainly are going to adapt our language to what the legislature has done. Hopefully we can make something that dovetails fairly well with it.
With all these new changes, packaging and stuff like that, and testing, as you mentioned, do you see? How do you see it? You talked about having to form these rules to already a big industry. Do you see? How do you see this adaptation going? Because I'm concerned that some folks, the smaller folks who might be really good participants, might not be able to comply with all this stuff.
It's going to get difficult unless you're going to have a professional operation. I will say that there are provisions in the bill that give breaks to smaller growers of 5,000 or 10,000 square feet or less have more options as to what kind of licenses they are allowed to get, for example, and the issuance of large licenses above like 20,000 square feet can be limited and is supposed to be limited by the state, so they're encouraging larger licenses to be limited and not the smaller licenses, but certainly paying all of the fees that are going to be involved, all of the different agencies you got to deal with, the water people and the local land use people. You got to get a local permit as well too, and then of course you got to get your BOE stuff together, and you have to register as an agricultural producer, and you have to be on land that is suitable for commercial agriculture,
right.
Which not everybody is who's currently growing. I mean, we've got a lot of home growers out there who are really in residential areas that are not where you would typically be allowed to grow, even tomatoes
right.
in a commercial market. So there's going to be, a serious shift here. You're going to have to become a serious agricultural professional to continue in the industry, and I'm sure a lot of the smaller people and the hobby people and the people who've just been growing pot to, make ends meet as a for spare money, I think are going to be squeezed out of the market. But that was sort of inevitable.
Yeah. Okay, well, Dale, is there anything else that really stands out about this? It almost seems like a lot of this is not a surprise. Is there anything you see that's kind of stands out as a problem potentially moving ahead with?
Well, I think there are a few technical issues that are going to be a little difficult. They have really tied up the licensing system in a way that you can only get certain combinations of licenses. If you're a large grower, you can get certain kinds of licenses. If you're a small grower, you get other kinds of licenses, and you can't combine different license types.
Right.
Yeah, it's very hard to have a license to both cultivate and manufacture and distribute, with a few exceptions, and it's spelled out in a very complicated chart.
It is.
It does make it hard, for example, to have a seed sale venue where you would have a farm and like a winery where you would harvest the marijuana, process it, and sell it to visitors. That seems to be difficult under this, so that's sort of complicated. And the major new complication for everybody is that they have added these testing and inspection steps at 2 points in the regime now. That basically everything that comes harvested off a farm has to be tested and inspected before moving on to the next step, and everything that comes out of a manufacturer has to also be tested and inspected before moving on to the next step. And actually, they're quite explicit about the fact that this could also be a step where licensing where taxation might occur. Although the package doesn't really create any taxation. They're preparing for the likelihood of taxation,
Right.
which will come with legalization in 2016.
Well, Dale Gieringer, anything else you'd add at all about this? We could probably talk about it for quite a while.
No, we will be talking about this for years to come. This is the beginning of a process that will undoubtedly be going on, 10, 20 years from now. They will be working on regulating and refining the regulation of this industry. So this is the first step on a 1,000-mile journey.
Well, Dale Gieringer, thank you so much for taking time to chat with Cannabis Public Media.
You're welcome.